border time. So it's the tiniest little amount. And we'll start at the middle of the head. So a little bit of head on top of the, see? On top of the border, it kind of comes across here. I'm going to come right on top of that wing. So a little bit both sides. Right? See how we're getting that just trimmed effect? All right, so I also see that I have to be cautious that I don't come in, like go too far on that side and then come through the wing. I don't want little bits of red sticking out of the wing. So keep it to the top. That makes sense? You know what I mean? Like when I pushed this through that far down, it came through on this side. I don't want that. So keep it to the top. It's like a little edging. Just a little edging. Okay, so I'm going to come around to about, not quite to the bottom, almost to the bottom. And then from there, it's a little bit of white that I want, not the red. And this red should be really quite thin. I want it to be fine. So once it's in place, compress it. And you compress it by tangling up the fibers. Tap, 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 tap. Tangle, 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 tangle. So when I look at that, I ask myself, do I want it to be more compressed? And I do. I want it to be a fairly thin line. Okay, and then just keep going with that until you make it as thin as you want it to be. Just watching that you still have the shape that you want. I'm going to pull that up a little bit because I want the height. I want a bit of height right there at the wing. Okay, then where the red stops, I want a very small white border then. If you hear panting in the background, as I mentioned, it's a very hot day and my husky is on the porch with me. Even though he has been welcomed into the house, into the much cooler house, he wants to be on the porch. He's having a bit of a hot day. Pepper is a husky lab cross, a rescue from the 2020 fires in northwestern Ontario. He had 11 siblings and no mom to be seen. They flew him out. Okay, again, I want this white to be less chunky. I want a thinner line of white. And I can change that. I'm in control. Right wing. Let's do that again. And we learned from that side that less is definitely more. So you can see I did it again there when I was pushing through at the back. I pushed through to the front. So this went quite dramatically, so I'm just going to cut it out and then see if I can push any of them back. Can I push you back? So what am I doing here? I'm taking a look at them and I'm seeing where I feel like I need to alter them. I can see when I pulled this one nicely and then this one I compressed a bit. So let's see if I can pull it just a little bit to give it more of that shape that I want. And that worked really well, actually. I'm happy with that. Not too hard, but I like the idea of having a little boot there. And then here, it's a little bit too fine. Just going to add just the tiniest little bit more there. Because I'm looking for symmetry. Now this tiny bit of white goes up along this wing. When I look at her, I feel like this is a bit of a crown now. There's a suggestion of a crown there. And while I'm not going to make an obvious crown, I like it. So I'm just going to enhance that suggestion. See where it comes down as though it would in the middle of the forehead. Like a diadem. Yes, I kind of like that. So now let's repeat that red from here to about here. And then we'll have a bit of yellow here and some more white up here. Okay, and I'm feeling at the bottom again very much less is more. There we go, we have just a tiny detail. And you can decide, since you are in control of this, when you look at your top, do you want less red up there? Do you want that amount of red up there? If so, you can do that. These are just the lightest of little taps. Okay. Now, I do still see a little bit of red there. And here's a thing that I can do. I can take the tiniest little bit of green and cover it up. So if that happens anywhere in your moth, if there's any spot where you feel like either other threads have come through, or it's a little lighter than you want it to be, or any kind of problem happened, felting is so forgiving. Just put a little cover up on. Just a little cover up. I want some little bits of yellow now. So just a little bit here on the edge. Just a tiny bit. Of course, when we do this, when we add little bits of color and shading, we're just making we are just making our Luna moth a little bit more beautiful, a little less simplistic. There's this tiny bit of yellow here. And then you see how I have this, these wisps, this group of wisps there. So I take my needle and I twirl them into the needle and boop, 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 gone. That's a very handy tip for when you're cleaning up your sculpture later. For hiding those little bits. And see, just a tiny bit of yellow. Giving me a hip there. Let's do the same over here. Since this is a little thicker, I can hold it here and tap over there, which means that I'm less likely to stab myself as if I was doing it there, which I know I keep asking you to do that. But if I can hold it over here, that's better. That's a safer option. I'm less likely to stab myself. Also, you can buy those little leather finger covers. I've tried to use them, and I really, for me, the way that everything feels is such a big part of this that it didn't work for me, but it might work for you. I love how slow it is. I love the way that the wool smells. I love the way that the wool feels and the way the lanolin gets on my fingers. All of this is part of this meditative practice that I have that is felting, that makes me feel so calm and joyful. But stabbing yourself is not calm or joyful, so maybe at the beginning you might want some of those leather fingertips. Okay, so we've got the bit of red, we've got a bit of yellow there, and then I think I want to pull some yellow down here, and then maybe some white up the top. Oh, I still have this bit of yellow. So here he's quite thin, right? So you can't do that bit that I just said where you can hold and tap from the other direction. If I can do this, tapping into the mat, that's maybe better than tapping into your hands. So I am going to just snip this. I'm going to snip it at an angle, because maybe that will help us with that wispy, you know how it's kind of wispy at the end, a Luna moth tail? That might help with that. Okay, so nice yellow there. I would do the same thing over here with this other half of it. Look at that. See, I can tap in on a horizontal without tapping into my hands. I can do it. Let's lift that. Come around on this side. I don't have a lot of needles here. That's just me showing off that I have a lot of needles. Yeah, it's silly. I just like to have them there. Makes me happy. Like, oh, well. Maybe I want another needle for this little bit. Maybe I want a 38 spiral. 38 spiral is a great needle for almost anything, really. Oh yeah, that makes a nice little wisp at the end. Even let the yellow come off of the green just a tiny bit, the way that has. Show the Luna moth's tail kind of curls in on itself and is very light and wispy at the end. So I'm going to create that little wisp there. And gently pulling it off. Okay, so there's the yellow. And then I want to come up with white up those centers, that center spot. So see, here's a little red hair. Yoop. And then this white has wanted to attach itself to the bottom, so let me clean that up a bit. Okay. Bit of white, tiniest little bit, tiniest little wisp of white. But I have to be careful. If I felt it too much into the mat, then it's going to cause a problem. It's going to lose its shape. So we're felting a moth. A moth with gossamer wings. So it's a little tricky. It's a little tricky working on something this thin. And you can make your moth thicker if that makes him easier to work with. But he's going to be prettier, I think, if he's lighter. But it does leave you with some kind of tricky, delicate work. And go ahead and spend some time with this. You'll want to do that at the end anyway. Go over every little bit and see, does that need a little bit more tapping? It might need a little bit more tapping. Usually it helps. It rarely harms. Okay, other side, other side. See how light that line is? Now we're coming down into this wispy bottom, the white meeting the yellow in that wispy bottom. Okay, so carefully lift it up. So, what am I doing here? I'm twirling, and that little bit that we left at the end, I'm going to twist that. So that's a little gossamer end. This is using my hands to shape. I have a chunk of white there. Okay. Don't really want that. Twist, twist, twist. Twist those little bottom bits. Twist, 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 twist. Use my hands. I want them to be, there we go. Just lovely. Just lovely. All right, so now what else do we have? We have got these little pieces at the top. They're like little eyes. So it comes off of here. It's this that we're attempting to make, right? It comes off and then comes around with yellow and then black and has a little white in the center. So begin with the red. I'm coming to there, and I'm going to do both red sides at once because that's going to help me to make them the same. I see similarity there. Now for yellow, just a little bit of yellow, not too much, just a bit. Continue that curve. A little bit with the yellow. And again. Curve that up. Then I think next step is going to be this little white center. Because if I do the black and then the white, I think I might have problems. So I'm going to do the white and then the black. Okay. Usually my hands aren't moist enough, but it is so hot today. Still no place I'd rather be than on the back porch. It's the Feltalala place. Can you hear the birds? I hope so. I hope you can hear them. They're very loud. We have so many. I have a life list of birds that I have heard back here, and I'm at 88, I think. 88 birds. Look at you, pretty, pretty moth, you. See, and then we're going to have just a little black outline on the outside there. I think that is best accomplished after the white. So just take like this much, it's almost nothing, and then roll it, and then lose it, and then find it again. Okay, once again. Almost nothing. Roll it. Lose it. And then find it again. Every time. All right, there's those little pretty little eyes.